Before I begin, please do not send hate to this creator or anyone that they are affiliated with. Please do not interact with their content in a negative way. Today, I'm going to be talking about a content creator that goes by the name of Roswo, and more specifically, we're going to be looking at accusations of racism. This contains racist jokes, references to slavery, racial stereotypes, and what allegedly happened after people within his community confronted him about it. I had an informant on the inside who passed me screenshots and information regarding the situation. I'll be showing these screenshots in the video, giving you the information you need to come to a conclusion on your own. I won't be telling you what to think and just providing you with the information. Because when you're dealing with accusations this serious, context matters and so does evidence. Before we get into the accusations themselves, it's important to establish a groundwork on who Roswo actually is. Roswo is a Minecraft content creator who has built an active community around his content and his Discord server. Throughout his content, Roswo repeatedly plays into the romantic or sexual tension with other male characters. This isn't just one random joke that happens one time. It becomes part of the way certain interactions are presented to the audience throughout all of his content. Here, the interaction is being framed in a way that goes beyond normal friendship or a joke. The romantic undertones are clearly being played out for the audience. When viewers begin shipping these characters or creators together, instead of completely shutting down that interpretation, Roswo encourages the narrative and continues feeding into the dynamic of their relationship. That's where the accusation of queerbaiting comes from. To be clear, this is not claiming to know Roswo's sexuality. No one watching this content can know that, and that isn't the point. The issue is repeated use of romantic or queer-coded subtext as part of his content, while encouraging the audience to engage with that ambiguity. According to multiple accounts and pieces of evidence I was provided, problems began to arise surrounding the types of jokes being made within that community, as well as the way people were allegedly being treated when they objected to those jokes. This is what we are going to be examining. We're going to be looking at whether there was a repeated pattern of behavior, how people responded to it, and what happened when members of the community actually tried to address this certain behavior. That's where the allegations begin. So, what exactly is Roswo being accused of? According to the accounts I was provided, Roswo is being accused of making racist jokes, making comments that mock slavery, and using racial stereotype as entertainment. And honestly, even one of those things would be serious enough to warrant criticism. But what makes this situation even more concerning is the context surrounding some of these incidents. These weren't simply discussions about racism or conversations where offensive subjects were brought up in order to criticize them. These accusations prove racism in itself is being used as a punchline, which is a very different thing. And while most people can understand that racism is wrong, the internet has created an environment where people can hide behind jokes, irony, or fictional characters to excuse things that they would never say openly. One example that was brought to my attention involves a Minecraft video. This is where things become a lot more specific. In one of Roswo's Minecraft videos, there are wither skeletons being used in a scenario that references slavery. The skeletons are being whipped, and this scene is framed as a joke. There's also a sign containing racial jokes that reference the same subject. And now before someone says, it's literally Minecraft, yes, it is Minecraft, but the fact that something happens inside of a fictional game does not automatically remove the meaning behind the imagery being used. Slavery is a very real part of history involving the exploitation and dehumanization of Black people. So when that history is recreated through racial stereotypes, whipping, and unfunny jokes for entertainment, it's reasonable for people to question why that was even considered funny in the first place. That's one of the reasons this particular clip became important to the situation. Because unlike an accusation that simply says he made a racist joke, this is something for viewers to actually examine for themselves because the footage is right there and the context is very visible, and the way it's presented is there for anyone to judge. There are also several other examples from Roswo's content that need to be addressed because they show a pattern in the way racial subjects are used for humor and engagement. One example would be the White Enderman video. In the video, the Enderman is presented in a way that leads directly into jokes about his appearance and race. The comments under the video continue that framing, with viewers referring the Enderman as white and calling it better. One comment even describes it as not able to steal blocks, is able to swim, friendly, and white. The important part here isn't simply that someone made a joke about an Enderman being white. It's the racial framing that becomes the actual punchline of the interaction, and the comment section continues building on that joke. In this case, Roswo is playing Wordle and asks his audience for help identifying the word. During the interaction, a racial slur is entered into the Wordle game. I'm not going to repeat the slur here because a specific word isn't necessary to understand what happened. What matters is that a racial slur was incorporated into the interaction rather than simply being an unrelated piece of background text. And again, one individual incident does not automatically establish someone's entire character. The reason these examples matter is because they don't exist in isolation. When you put the Enderman videos, the Wordle incident, and the other examples together, they create a much larger picture of the type of humor that exists in Roswo's content. Alongside these accusations, there were also repeated reports of homophobic and transphobic comments within the Discord community. However, these are separate accusations from the claims of racism, and I don't want to pretend that they're all the exact same issue. However, they do provide additional context for the kind of environment that people were describing. Roswo's community repeatedly being described to me from my informants as a place where offensive comments and more are accepted, while people who speak out against certain behavior allegedly face moderation action. It's fair to question what kind of environment is really being maintained in Roswo's server. Some of these screenshots show actual comments that were made, while other pieces of information come from people describing what they've experienced. Those are not identical forms of evidence and they shouldn't be treated as though they are. However, together they help explain why people are becoming concerned about the community in the first place. At this point, we are no longer talking about one screenshot or one person making an accusation. There are now several pieces of different information that need to be considered together. According to the accounts I was provided, members of the community confronted Roswo about his behavior, and eventually an apology was given. Now, an apology by itself isn't necessarily a bad thing. In fact, acknowledging that you did something wrong is usually the first step towards actually fixing the problem. But according to people involved in the situation, the issue was the way the apology was allegedly presented forward. Rather than being simply treated as an acknowledgement of wrongdoing, people described the apology as something they were expected to be grateful for. It was almost as if the apology was some kind of privilege being given to them. This was the apology that was presented.
Back in the beginning of 2025, I made some videos that included racist stereotypes. However, these were not opinions that I personally shared, but rather than content ideas that were going around at the time for views. At the time, I didn't fully understand the meaning or impact of what I was doing. That is not something I identify with at all. I understand that I was not okay with doing that, and I understand why people are upset with it. I sincerely apologize to everyone I offended or hurt in any way, especially the people who were affected by these stereotypes on a daily basis. That was almost 2 years ago, and I've absolutely grown and matured since then. However, I still recognize that what I did was mature and wrong. That does not excuse what I did or take away my responsibility. I want to take a full accountability because it does not reflect who I am or what I believe in today. All I can do is acknowledge my past actions, learn from my mistakes, and do better with the rest of my content. We all make mistakes in the past, and that's part of being human. What matters is that we learn most from them, understand why they were wrong, and work to do better. The second claim concerns a screenshot from a Wordle that clearly showed the N-word, which I posted a few days ago. That screenshot is undeniable. I made a stupid mistake and immediately recognized it. I know this doesn't make it okay, but for context, this happened while I was in college with friends who are from that stereotype. We were just fooling around and they did not seem to have a problem with it at the time. It was a stupid decision that I participated in and I take responsibility for that. I know this doesn't excuse it and I'm sorry for using the word. I understand its gravity much better now and recognize that people were upset by seeing that screenshot. Again, I'm truly sorry to everyone that I offended or hurt. I hope with time I can show through my actions that I've learned from these mistakes and grown as a person. And just to be clear, I am not racist, nor do I have anything against anyone because of their race. I believe that everyone is equal and deserves to be treated with respect. I could have easily made up an excuse and told you guys that the screenshot was fake and tried to deny it, but I chose to be honest about what happened. I hope that shows that I'm genuinely sorry and not just trying to find a way to get out of this.
If someone genuinely understands why something they did was harmful, an apology shouldn't be treated like leverage. It shouldn't become a way of saying, "At least I apologized," as though the apology itself should erase everything that came before it. A genuine apology should be focused on acknowledging what happened, understanding why it was wrong, and explaining what will actually be done differently moving forward. There's a huge difference between taking accountability and simply receiving all the credit for saying sorry. And whether you believe the apology was genuine or not, there's still another part of this situation that needs to be addressed. What happened to the people who continue talking about it? These aren't simply screenshots from one person making an accusation. I was provided multiple accounts from people describing similar experience involving Roswo's community and its moderation. Several people claimed that the individuals who spoke about the situation were silenced, removed, or banned from the server. In the screenshot, this person describes their experience with the situation. Another person describes a similar concern surrounding people being removed or prevented from speaking about what happened. And there were more accounts describing similar experiences. According to these accounts, some people felt that speaking about the situation could result in moderation action being taken against them, whether that being meant removed from conversations, losing access to the server, or being banned entirely. But there's a much bigger issue. The concern comes in if people are being punished specifically because they're discussing misconduct or raising concerns about people running the community. If that's what happened, then it's something that deserves scrutiny. A community can obviously have rules, and moderators can remove people for legitimate reasons, but this is an obvious indicator of censorship. So, let's take a step back and look at what we already have. There are accusations that Roswo made racist jokes and used racial stereotypes for entertainment. There's a Minecraft video containing imagery and jokes that reference slavery, along with a sign that uses racial humor in the same context. There are also accounts describing an apology that, according to the people involved, was not received as genuine accountability. On top of that, multiple people have claimed that individuals who spoke about the situation were silenced, removed, or banned. And then there are additional reports and pieces of evidence concerning homophobic and transphobic behavior within the Discord community. Now, although this does not prove that every single accusation against Roswo is true, dismissing everything as one isolated joke doesn't really address the full picture either. At the end of the day, this situation isn't really about whether someone made out a bad joke. People make stupid decisions and people say things that they regret. The real question is what happens afterward. When you're confronted with something you've done that has genuinely hurt or offended people, do you acknowledge it and take responsibility, or do you focus more on defending yourself and moving past the criticism? Because saying I'm sorry is easy, but proving that you mean it is way harder. And when the behavior being discussed involves racism, slavery references, and racial stereotypes, or other forms of discrimination, that accountability becomes even more important. When you put all these pieces together, there's a pattern that people are understandably going to question. The important thing is being honest about what we actually know, what has been shown, and what comes from accounts of people who were involved. I'm not asking you to blindly trust me or accept every claim that I say without question. I still encourage every single one of you to look deeper into the subject and gather your own evidence. But the evidence I have is shown here, and you can make your own judgment about whether it demonstrates a serious problem. And that right there is what this video is ultimately about. I'm not here to tell you the opinion you're required to have, but I'm here to lay out what I was shown and explain the context surrounding it. I'm here to let you come to your own conclusion based on the information presented. Because whatever your opinion on Roswo is after watching this, I think one thing should be pretty obvious. When people start speaking up about serious issues within a community, the answer shouldn't be to simply make people disappear or pretend that the problem doesn't exist after brushing it off. Your course of action should be to actually listen, address the concerns being raised, and to take accountability when something genuinely went wrong. I hope this video helped you recognize your opinion on this situation. Thank you so much for watching this video. You can support me and my content by liking this video, commenting, subscribing, and sharing it to a friend. Stay tuned for more content in the future.